Dinosaurs are some of the most powerful, awe-inspiring, and terrifying creatures. Here are just some of the reasons why. Let's talk a little more about the unnerving side of dinosaurs. Like these guys, the Giganotosaurus. Everyone always talks about how big and strong they are. Their jaw size and strength alone isn't everything to be afraid of. At the back of the skull, there's a piece called the occipital condyle, which for Giganotosaurus would allow their jaws to open and close much faster. And it also allowed them to move their head quickly from side to side, which means just like Will Ferrell, you're not going to serpentine your way out of this one. And let's not forget about raptors, specifically their claws. These claws vary in size depending on the species of the raptor, and the ones on the smaller end, while still dangerous, aren't as big of a worry. Some of them had claws upwards of 8 inches in length. Incredibly dangerous and effective predatory tool. But predators aren't the only dangerous ones around town. Some herbivores like Triceratops would have been heavily armored and defended. Yes, the size and shapes of the horns vary between species. The majority of these animals are at least a ton or two. Judging by modern animals with similar builds, probably have no problem taking you off the census if they thought you looked funny. Many animals are dangerous. Despite their ferocity, these animals still deserve respect. This should go without saying, but that goes for all extinct and non-extinct animals. You know, I think folks don't realize how terrifying some dinosaurs really are. Take Carnotaurus, for example, a powerful carnivore known as the meat-eating bull, and one that you probably wouldn't escape. Studies showed they could run upwards of 30 miles an hour, and they were capable of delivering quick bites. But at least there isn't a dinosaur that can track you that far, right? Oh wait, there is. A Tyrannosaur could track you up to 3 miles away, not only because they have one of the most powerful noses in the animal kingdom, but also because of their eyesight. They have incredible binocular vision. Capable of tracking prey up to 3 miles away, it's stronger than birds of prey today. And coupled with their powerful brain, they would have been quick thinkers. Now, hadrosaurs, they're probably not very quick thinkers, but not enough people give them credit. A single kick from one of these guys would be devastating. And that's not even talking about Iguanodon and its spike thumb. Herbivores are known to have tempers, and sauropods definitely would be included in that. These guys are literally walking buildings, and you know they catch at least a few bodies. And we would be no exception. Big and scary dinosaurs are cool and all, but whatever made these guys needs to chill. This guy is a megaraptor. And sure, other dinosaurs can be bigger and stronger, but just look at these claws. And in some species, including Megaraptor itself, the first claw is longer than the entire arm. Their second claws are also relatively long, but their third one's reduced, and they would have been backed up by some incredibly powerful arms. Most predatory dinosaurs are assumed to hunt using their jaws, but not these guys. In fact, their jaws were relatively weak. Instead, they relied on their claws as their primary hunting tool, and they would have been capable of incredible damage to prey. And they'd likely also use the claws afterwards too. They could use their claws to break the carcasses apart to make them easier to process. Since most scientists seem to agree that they're either tyrannosaurs or nestled deep within the Coelurosauria, there's also intelligence, because many coelurosaurs are shown to have enlarged brain cases, which would make them a far more tactical predator. And even if they're not the largest dinosaur, they're all relatively big. And if you've watched the show Primal, I'm fairly certain they were the inspiration for the Night Feeder. These dinosaurs don't get enough credit. What are the strongest dinosaurs? That's a fairly common question I receive. But there's one very simple answer. Sauropods. Sauropods are by far the strongest dinosaurs. Even the somewhat smaller ones have the ability to topple trees with relative ease. And while they're often depicted as gentle giants, based on modern animals, they likely weren't. Most modern land animals over a few hundred pounds seem to have sort of a temper. So what would make you think they didn't? Some species reach such monstrous sizes that they had no natural predators. A single blow from any of its appendages could kill a smaller animal and cripple a large one. Sauropods are a force of nature. You've heard of Giganotosaurus, but have you heard about its potentially pack-hunting cousin? This is a Mapusaurus, and just like their cousin, they're an enormous South American carnivore. At just over 35 feet, they're not quite as big as a Giganotosaurus, but that is still one enormous predator. But what would make them even more deadly is the fact that they may have hunted in packs. Their bones have been found in a bone bed containing at least 7 individual Mapusaurus, and some claim this as evidence of pack or gregarious behavior. If they did hunt in packs, it would enable them to take on much larger prey, such as sauropods. With jaws made to shear flesh and cause bleeding, a pack of these could have even worn down a large sauropod. But did you notice that I keep saying if? A lot of scientists disagree that the bone bed is evidence of pack behavior. Many believe that it could be a predator trap, and there are a multitude of other theories out there as well. But what do you think? Do you think carnivores of this size would be capable of complex social behaviors? Discuss it with me in the comments below. Some dinosaurs are terrifying animals. Take Allosaurus here, for example. Seeing images of them battling each other is already impressive enough, but it's their hunting method that's really horrifying. Allosaurus jaws aren't incredibly powerful, but they can open incredibly wide. So instead, they'd use their arms and legs to pin down their prey, before they started eating it alive. because despite their lack of jaw power, their teeth were designed to shear flesh. But they're not the only terrifying dinosaur. You see, there's a theory that Tyrannosaurus was a venomous animal. What type of venom and how effective it is obviously unclear. It would definitely make them a little more terrifying. But just to be clear, most people disagree that it was a venomous animal. But what most people don't disagree with is that a Spinosaurus is a powerful dinosaur. Love them or hate them, they were still keen predators in their aquatic and semi-aquatic ecosystems. And in and around the water, they have one major advantage that I have mentioned before. The holes along the snout are called foramina. And like crocodilians, it would have allowed them to detect movement within the water. If you want to learn more about that, check out my other video that talks specifically about their pressure sensors. We've talked about how terrifying carnivores are, but herbivores don't get enough credit. Like these nightmare turkeys, the Tyrannosaurs. Studies done in 2018 show that their arms are fairly resilient to stress, which lends support to the idea that they could use their claws in defense. Or offense, I suppose. And of course, we can't forget about Ankylosaurs. These multi-ton tanks are dangerous for a number of reasons. But I've heard some newer theories that are a little more disturbing. It seems that some Ankylosaurs may have been able to swim. And if they could swim based on their body build, they'd likely swim similar to a hippo. And if you know anything about hippos and their tempers, imagine theirs. I feel like they'd be Mamadou's worst fear. Hippos are already bad enough, but an armored hippo with a club tail? That's just a straight up L. We haven't even touched on ceratopsians yet, but their reputation kinda speaks for itself. And there are so many species with so many different facial displays, some of which are definitely a little more wild than others. And as you can imagine, getting gored with those horns would not be a good time. Plus, any dinosaurs that can hold their own against tyrannosaurs deserve respect. In fact, they all do. This is the Bisty Beast, better known among scientists as Beastiheversaur. Like most tyrannosaurs, it was from North America, specifically New Mexico. These powerful carnivores could be up to 30 feet long, and they possessed many traits that would be shown in later, much more derived tyrannosaurs. An endocranial study conducted in 2020 shed some light on its biology. This showed us two major factors. While their eyes may seem slightly small for their head, it's actually still in binocular vision, which would have given them better eyesight than any other predator in their territory. And it also showed us that they had a keen sense of smell. And there's also something called gaze stabilization. Many modern birds of prey share this feature with them as a way of keeping their eyes on a single target. They would pass these traits on to their descendants, giving them a much better chance in the future. And eventually, from creatures like these, we got Tyrannosaurus rex itself. This animal is Ken. They're part of a group known as terror birds. Remember, not all dinosaurs died in the KPG extinction, and so they had to come up with a new way to terrorize life on this planet. They're the largest member of the Forest Racidae, and the biggest estimates put them at up to 10 feet tall. And Ken's head is around the size of a horse. Even compared to other members of its own family, Ken is rather robust. He's like that cousin that becomes a gym rat after high school, and it made them capable of taking down exceptionally large prey for an animal of their size. Though it is assumed that they hunted animals mostly smaller than themselves. And a more recent study showed that the terror birds had very rigid skulls. Combined with their long neck, this would have allowed them to deliver powerful death blows to their prey. And I don't know about you, but just that hooked beak is enough to scare me off. Tyrannosaurus rex is often called the tyrant lizard king. But what makes them the king? To be honest with you, probably quite a bit more than most people expect. Now, of course, they're obviously huge animals. But they're not just enormous, they happen to be the heaviest carnivorous dinosaur. They could reach up to 9 tons, and some of the larger specimens like Sue and Stan could reach up to 10. Just for a reference, that's over 20,000 pounds. Not to mention the fact that they have the strongest bite force of any terrestrial animal. Measuring in at over 12,000 pounds per square inch, they could crush steel. But their most terrifying feature is their brain. It used to be a commonplace joke that tyrannosaurs didn't have the biggest brains, but we now know they actually had one of the largest brains compared to body size for a dinosaur. Studies of the brain case show us that their eyesight and their smell were highly developed. And because of those brain scans, we assume that they hunt similar to birds, which would require quick and decisive thinking and sometimes changing the strategy mid-attack. So yeah, T-Rex is not only strong and scary, but smart. Carnivores are not the only ones you should fear. I mean, Ankylosaurus was a living tank. These animals could reach over 25 feet long, and a big part of their danger is their armor. Aside from their underbelly, these guys are armored down to their eyelids. And their specialized armor, known as osteoderms, can be found in modern animals such as crocodilians today. And it's actually a pair of specialized osteoderms that make up this tail. These were some of the only herbivores that Tyrannosaurus would actually be cautious about. One swing from their tail could cripple the large animal. That being said, a Tyrannosaur's bite force could definitely penetrate parts of their armor, so an Ankylosaurus wasn't entirely safe either. But if you know anything about large modern herbivores, you know that they're not exactly friendly. Kinda comes with being hunted all the time. And there's no reason to assume Ankylosaurus would be much different. We should definitely stop giving carnivores all the credit for being the scary ones. One of the largest theropod dinosaurs is Spinosaurus. And whether you love them or hate them, they're one of the most popular and terrifying dinosaurs. Current estimates put these guys at over 45 feet in length and 8 tons, making them the longest carnivorous dinosaur of all time. And these guys were special as far as dinosaurs go because they were at least partially aquatic. And new research from earlier this year shows us that their dense bones would have allowed them to dive to greater depths than previously thought. In addition to those dense bones, they may have also had webbed feet, and they have a very paddle-like tail, as well as pressure sensors similar to modern-day crocodilians. These adaptations would not only allow it to be a successful predator in water, but around it as well. Their webbed feet would make it much easier for them to walk around the unstable sand. And because the tail is so large, it acts like a counterbalance, allowing them to walk bipedally. And it's currently thought that they were mainly ambush hunters. So yeah, even though they're mainly an aquatic creature, you still don't want that smoke on land, because they would be more than happy to oblige. Triceratops is a powerful dinosaur from late Cretaceous North America, and they're one of the most well-defended and popular dinosaurs in the known world. And when they're adults, they could even give T-Rex a hard time. Not to say that a T-Rex couldn't bring down a Triceratops, but it would be no easy feat. Their size alone would be a warning enough for most other predators. At up to 30 feet long and 6 tons, it's comparable in size to modern-day elephants. And those horns are nothing to scoff at. Each of their brow horns could be up to 3 feet long, with their nasal horn up to a foot. And at the rear of the skull, they have a huge occipital condyle, which would allow them extensive head movements, especially side to side. It's thought that their horns were mainly used for mating purposes, with males clashing against males for the right to mate. Though some people think they're more like rhinos. Since both females and males have horns, it's thought that they were mainly used for self-defense. And if they have poor eyesight like rhinos do, then it doesn't matter if you're a T-Rex, a raptor, or some unfortunate hatchling. If you're in their vicinity, it's on sight.